Welcome back to My Life, His Story. As you remember, last week we started with this amazing story. Get ready, here we come with part two.
Yeah, it's always since then, and I don't want to speed up too far in the story, but I have
Mhm.
focused a lot of my time, effort, and energy on suicide prevention and things of that nature. And it's always interesting to me when I'm talking to somebody and they'll say something like, well, think about your family, right? Think about your wife, think about your kids. And in my head, my answer was always, what the heck do you think I was thinking of? Right? I couldn't be what they needed. I was just this big burden that was just sitting there costing them so much of time, effort, energy. They were walking on eggshells when they were around me. I was a disaster to be around. If I couldn't be what they deserved, the least I could do is give them some money. That
Right.
was my thought process. And
Mhm.
and I found myself at a place where death appeared to be an upgrade. And yeah, from that moment, I mean, clearly, spoiler alert, I was not successful with my attempt. Um, and that's really where my whole life changed. Everything changed at that moment.
Yep. Yep. And I'll never forget hearing your story for the first time several years ago. And that piece, and it just reminds me that um, his purpose is greater. And you've touched lives from that. You've touched so many lives, including my own. And so I'm so thankful.
Yeah, it's crazy. Um, but interestingly enough, I got released from the hospital after my suicide attempt, and I was walking from the hospital back to the barracks room,
That's right.
and
What happened at that point?
yeah, that's in
That's the
my
next chapter here.
it is. It absolutely is. And in my head, here's what's crazy is I was already thinking about ways that I could be successful. I was thinking about I was already making a plan to complete my desire.
Hmm.
And while I was walking, I walked past this building that I'd walked past thousands of times. I'd been inside of it. I was super familiar with the building, but there was something different, right? There was a guy standing out front in a black t-shirt that said Reboot Combat Recovery. And as I walked by, he had called out to me and said, "Hey man, you here for Reboot?" And I was familiar with Reboot because his wife, Dr. Jenny Owens, had been my doctor of occupational therapy at the TBI Center, the Traumatic Brain Injury Center. Excuse me, center. And she had made such an impact on my life because even at that time, she was the only provider that I had had that I felt like a person and not a number. And she was
Mhm.
so loving and caring. And she had talked to me about Reboot, but Reboot was this faith-based program, and I was an atheist, and
That's
so
right.
I don't have time. I don't have time for this God. God's never had time for me. Why would I walk into this room? And so he asked me, "Hey man, you here for Reboot?" And I said, "Nah, man, I appreciate it." And I kept walking, and then he said the two words that'll get anybody to do
And
anything:
what are those words, Brian?
free food.
That's
Right?
right.
Yeah, he said free food, and so I sat there and I thought about it, and I was like, "Well, dang." Um, I have ramen noodles in my barracks room. All right. So the joke is, I walked in for a plate of lukewarm spaghetti, and my life after walking into a reboot combat recovery, my life would never be the same. Uh, it was hard, right? Like it was hard. The first 12 weeks, I wasn't who I am even today, and so I didn't talk much, and I did a lot of grunting, right? Um, but I listened, and slowly but surely over the 12-week process, my my walls were torn down, my heart was softened, um, and for the first time in a long time, there was hope that tomorrow could be better than today.
Yeah. Yes. And that's the key. And even walking in as a non-believer, you found hope.
So,
And now you get to be the hope. to lead people to hope.
It's crazy. So I walked through the first cycle, and I'll never forget. It was week 7 of the first cycle. That after the group was over, I confronted Evan. I cornered him. I'm not going to say he was nervous or scared, but he was. And I was like, "Hey, man, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what I'm feeling. I don't know what I'm thinking. All of this is brand new to me, but I just feel like I need to somehow be a part of this. Like I'm supposed to do something here." Um, And so I finished out the group. He started meeting with me to get coffee, and we just started talking about things. And I'd ask questions, and he'd answer. And then leading up to the next group, he said, "Hey, man, I would love for you to come alongside Jenny and I and just kind of help us out." Um, and it started slow, right? I didn't get up and start teaching. I would get there early and set up the tables and chairs. And when the group was done, I would tear down the tables and chairs. I would go out to the smoke shack, and the guys that were standoffish and hurting and felt broken, even though they were wounded, I would just talk to them and just connect with them. And through that, I mean, I think sometime in 2013, I ended up starting to come alongside Evan and start leading groups. And what was crazy is at that moment, like Reboot changed my life, but that's when my life went from being changed to having purpose.
Wow,
Because
that's so good.
for the first time, I realized that I could help people go from where I was to where I am.
Yes.
And it's the first time that I realized that every pain I've had in my life, it doesn't matter if it was childhood, adolescence, military, adult, every pain I've ever had in my life, there was a purpose for it.
And that is why we do what we do, right? That's what it's all about. That is the whole
So,
reason. Ah, that is so good. And so what is Bryan today? What is life today? Where are you at today? Because that was several years ago even still. And now today,
yeah,
here we are. So what is it, where are you at today?
man, I'm a man on purpose. I live on purpose. All around my house and in my vehicle, I have the number 1 written. And if somebody were to get in it, they'd probably think I was a pretty arrogant person. Um, but that's just a constant reminder that if I can help one person go from where I was to where I am, then it's worth it. If I can help one person go from hopeless to hope, from despair to joy, from panic to peace, then my whole life is worth it. And yeah, I led the group at Fort Campbell. I still lead the group at Fort Campbell. Um, I came alongside Evan and Jenny in 2015 and started helping out with outreach and doing things with expansion. And um, I've just kind of been here since, plugging away. It's the greatest joy in my life is not only leading groups and talking to people and helping them get groups going, but it's also I get to coach and work with our leaders all around the world that are trying to be just like me, are people who have been through a thing or two and decided that they wanted to help others. I had a drill sergeant once tell me, never trust a leader without a limp. And when people ask me what's so different about Reboot, our leaders got limps. Our
That's right.
leaders haven't had perfect lives. Our leaders everything hasn't worked out for them. They are people who have taken punches on the chin and they get back up. And not only do they get back up, but they help the person next to them up. Right. And so it's just this beautiful. I mean, heck, there's a reason why we had one group at Fort Campbell in 2013, and now there's almost 400 groups around the world.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm not I'm not somebody that thinks like every person needs reboot. I don't necessarily agree with that. I've seen reboot help a significant amount of people with different trauma and different levels and all that stuff, and that's great. But I know that not all of us are called to leave, but every single one of us is called to serve.
Yes, I agree 100%. Wow. Well, thank you. And I know I owe so much to you because you were, instrumental in the purpose of my story as well. And I have you to thank for that. And just, where we are today and how, our stories have intertwined now and just where it's just, I look back and I see where we're at, Bryan, and I just laugh, because if you had told me this several years ago, I would tell you you're crazy. And now here we are. And so I am just so honored that I get to be part of this little piece with you. And thank you for allowing me to just be here with you today. And is there anything that you would like to just close with, or add anything that, that I forgot to ask about, or?
No, I guess I just want people to know this. I understand that you've been through a thing or two in your life, and I would never say that I understand exactly what you went through. But I will tell you that there is a group of people who care, and a group of people who are willing to stand with you and fight.
Yes,
That's it.
absolutely. That's perfect. That's perfect.
And when it comes to my life and story, I'm gonna be honest, y'all. We're just getting started. This is
That's right.
just the beginning. We wanted to make sure that you kind of knew who Heather and I were. We wanted to make sure that you knew the purpose, right? I have no doubt that there are people who are going to listen to the last few episodes and are going to say, man, I know what that's like. And they're going to feel like nobody understands. We understand, and we're here. And I want you to join us every week as we continue to hear more powerful stories and know that we're more connected than we think.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. And join us next week for My Life, His Story.